Welcome back to our series of interviews with Naomi Klein, author of The Shock Doctrine. Welcome, Naomi.
Thanks, Paul.
I was quite struck in your book very early on with a quote from Milton Friedman, and I'd like to read it and then talk about it. Friedman writes, "Only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change. When the crisis occurs, the actions that are taken depend on the ideas that are lying around. That, I believe, is our basic function, to develop alternatives to existing policies, to keep them alive and available until the politically impossible becomes politically inevitable." I was quite struck with this because while many people have talked about capital flowing into areas where there's crisis and taking advantage of it, it's more kind of thought as a sort of blind, systemic phenomena. You're talking about something very conscious, that they're very aware of how to take advantage of these situations, economically and perhaps more importantly, politically. How's that playing out now?
Well, yeah, I mean, that distinction is important because, of course, corporations are built to be opportunistic. That's their mission. If there's an opportunity, they must take advantage of it. It's in the interest of their shareholders, and they should be sentimental about it. So that's what capitalism is supposed to do: take advantage of opportunities. What I'm talking about, and what I mean by disaster capitalism, is a political strategy. It's the ideological campaign that we've been living with for the past 30 years of since Reagan and Thatcher and globalization. It's privatization, deregulation, cuts to government spending. These are, in general, unpopular policies. They're certainly unpopular when they're being pushed through all at once. People tend not to vote for politicians who are saying, you know what I'm going to do, roll back labor standards and privatize essential services. I mean, we certainly know that from living in Canada, that you have to say that you're in favor of national health care or you don't win. So what this is a political strategy that understands that these policies are so unpopular that it requires a state of crisis, it requires a state of emergency that you can defer to, that you can plead crisis and then push through the policy.
So give us an example.
Well, I think we're living through one right now where you have a very clear, coordinated political strategy to use the high oil prices, and this has happened very, very quickly. There is an energy crisis. It's called global warming. It's called climate change, and we know that we need political alternatives to that crisis that get to the very root of that crisis. What we've seen is a spectacular changing of the topic, a very deliberate changing of the topic coming from the oil and gas industry to get all of the focus on high gas prices and present a policy alternative that will not solve the prices, but will be certainly in the economic interests of the oil and gas industries, which is to allow drilling the continental shelf in Anwar, to even go into the shale, which is hard rock, and turn that into oil, not to drill in it. These are all potentially environmentally devastating.
And all policies up until very recently they actually couldn't sell. They tried and were not successful in selling.
No, because they threaten other industries. They threaten the tourism industry. They threaten the fisheries. Drilling in Anwar is still incredibly unpopular, but that will change. I mean, what we've seen is that if you hammer away at this, and if you get all the people on corporate TV just reiterating the talking points of the oil and gas industry, and then you get a couple of presidential candidates also doing it, then people will start to say, yeah, drill now, pay less. That's what the bumper stickers say, even though all of the science, all of the research says that it would take 10 years to get these rigs drilling and have any kind of impact. I mean, you have to actually, the exploration isn't even done yet. You have to do the exploration, then you have to build the rigs, and this is probably 10 years away, minimum 5. And now you have just sort of an illusion that this could actually help your gas prices before you go on vacation next week.
Just to back up what you said a few seconds, you said a couple of presidential candidates.
Okay, well maybe that's not entirely fair, because
well,
Obama is still admitting that it will not affect gas prices, but he's saying he should do it anyway.
So perhaps
in the interest of bipartisanship.
And perhaps that sets up our next segment of our interview. Just what is going to be the attitude of progressive Americans and other people around the world towards the Obama candidacy, perhaps presidency? So please join us for the next part of our interviews with Naomi Klein, author of The Shock Doctrine, which has just come out in paperback.